I am starting with a disposable smoothie blender and my white StarBlends, which is by far my most used favorite color in all of my StarBlends. You can see I'm tapping off some of that excess powder and then starting to apply it to my eye. I tapped off a little too much powder, so I'm going to dip back in and go back over it, and now you can see I'm getting a nice bright white. Just like when you're using your water-activated face paint, you want to instruct the child or adult that you might be painting on to shut their eyes, whether you're going over their eye or if you're doing StarBlends on their forehead. Sometimes there's fallout that could drop into their eye, so be sure to tell them to shut their eyes when you're working on them. And I'm just going to kind of get my shape down for this and go over it if I need to. You'll notice that the shape I do for Spider-Man eyes is more like an egg shape with a peak, opposed to going up on the top of the forehead. So I'm going to get this side down too. My eyelashes are making it a little hard with my mascara, but it will be a lot easier for you on a little kid because they usually don't have a lot of mascara on. So typically people do Spider-Man eyes kind of way up on the forehead, which is fine. I just like to do mine a little bit more of a cat eye shape and going out. I think it looks a little bit better in the end. So now I'm going to take that same smoothie blender and just flip it over to the other side and start dipping into my red. This way I'm using one smoothie blender per child and I'm not having to use two per child. Now this red is nice and bright and lovely. I think the StarBlends red is great. I love using StarBlends for Spider-Man for a few reasons. One, if you're doing this with water-activated paint and going right up next to the white, you always get pink, and little boys don't really like that. You may also notice that the white on StarBlends sometimes looks pale, but by the time you put another color next to it, it's quite bright, so don't worry too much about that. Another thing I like to do with smoothie blenders is actually draw out my design. So you can see I'm using the edge to draw the shape of where I want this mask to go. And sometimes I do exactly what I'm doing here. I draw it on both sides before I fill it in. Doing something on one side of your face and then doing it on the other right afterwards really helps with symmetry. It's just a muscle memory thing rather than doing the entire one side and then skipping back to the other. If you go back and forth, it can help you with your symmetrical designs. So now I'm going to take one of my favorite stencils ever. It is BAM 1206. This is great for superheroes. You get these awesome, symmetrical, perfect little dots. I love the tiny side of this, but as you can see, it goes from small dots to larger dots, so you can do a lot with this. I like to do them just kind of coming off of the red on my cheeks or on the kid I'm painting on. And I sponged the StarBlends a little bit, but no big deal. You can wipe it off just like water-activated face paint. So now I'm going to grab my smoothie blender and I'm not even going to reload the side that I had white on, but I'm going to take what's left on my stick and I'm going to add some highlights to the red of my mask. This not only provides some highlight, but it gives it that Spider-Man texture that you see in the suit that he wears. And I'm going to repeat that on the sides of my mask as well. Now I will say that this stencil for me is a must-have. I tried to get a similar look with some of my other stencils before I received this one, and I couldn't quite get that superhero comic book look I was going for until I bought this stencil. And I tried a lot of them. I own just about every BAM stencil, so that should say a lot. Again, it's BAM 1206. Highly recommend it. So now I'm going to start the line work, and I am using water-activated paint now for my line work, and this is a Mark Reed brush. I believe it's a number 6, and I love it. It's really, really great. Now, one tip I will give you is to start your line where you want it to be the thickest and end it where you want it to be the thinnest. This makes sense if you think about it, because right after you load your brush is when you have the most paint on it, so the chances of you being more heavy-handed when you first lay down your brush are going to be better than at the very, very end. Okay, so my spider stripes, I of course want them to be thicker at the top and then get thinner, so I'm going to start at my thick thickest point of where I want that line to be, and then I'm going to skate on the very tip of my brush to get a thinner, more delicate line at the end. So I'm going to push down and then skate on the tip of my brush to get a nice thin point. And I'm going to do the same on this side. I do think this looks better with the spider web stripes, whatever you want to call them, than having it all be one thickness. It just gives a nice variation. For the web on the side, I'm going to use a similar technique, but I'm actually going to end by pointing them down, more towards the tip of my nose than the bridge of my nose. So if these were tiger stripes, I would say you want the end to always kind of go to the same focal point. This is probably one of the only designs that I don't say that. I don't know why. For some reason, I think it looks better when you do the edges pointing downward. And I've tried it both ways. I've done it differently at events. This is what I think looks the best, so this is how I do it. So now I'm just going to start with the little U shapes that create the web. And typically on a child's face, those 3 are going to fill up the forehead. My forehead's a little bit larger, so I needed to add one more line so that it connected well. So you just want to sweep little U shapes connecting your web together. It's completely up to you if you want to make them kind of all meet up the way I'm doing it and make them symmetrical. I think it looks nice when they don't meet up and that they're kind of random as well, so that is completely up to you. You can also add as many or as few as you'd like, depending on how much time you have and how detailed you want it to be. I typically do just a few on the sides, and then I kind of have one that kind of floats by itself. It's just how I've always done it. I don't know why, but I think it looks good and I like it. So you can see my one little floating line there. So this is your basic shape of our Spider-Man mask. So now we need to add the spider, and my spider is very easy. It starts with a small dot at the top and then a larger kind of oval for the body of the spider. And I always do it in the center of the eyes, right at the bottom of the mask. Now for the legs, you always want to start the legs in between the body and the head, so that where that little indentation is, you want all of your legs to come from that same spot, and it's going to look like a more realistic spider. I usually do about 3 to 2 segments depending on which legs. Usually the outer legs, I'll do 3 little segments, and it's really just little teardrops. They can be as thick or thin as you want them to be. And then I don't have a ton of room, so I'm going to do the other segment at the top on the inside with just a few legs. And then for the bottom legs, you can see 1, 2, 3 little lines connected. And I'm going to do again, 2, 3. And they're all coming from that same part of the body. Makes a huge difference. So there's our spider, super simple. At this point, at the very, very least, I would highlight the spider because it's going to be the thing that might get a little bit lost because you have a lot of other black lines going on. So take a nice small brush or one with a very, very good tip like this. I think this is a 4, but it's a low Cornell and it comes to a really, really nice fine tip. So I love using it. And I'm just going to sweep a white highlight over all of those legs so that they do not disappear. And then I've highlighted the body as well. So see how that makes a huge difference. It really pops out where it was kind of disappearing. As always, if you're at a festival or a birthday party and you have time, highlight the rest of it. It looks great to highlight the different black lines in the web. But if you do not have time to do this, it is not a necessary step, so skip it. If you have a huge, huge queue or huge line, then do not highlight your web. It'll be perfectly fine. The child is going to love it either way. And then since I have all the time in the world, I am going to do a little highlight around my eyes too. And we are just about done. And here is my very easy StarBlends Spider-Man. I love using StarBlends for this. I haven't used water-activated paint for my Spider-Man in maybe 2 years because this works so much better. And the little boys are always the ones running around getting sweaty too. So StarBlends lasts a lot longer. And I just love the way this looks. I hope you guys really like it. As always, like and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And I love all your messages, so don't stop sending them.